So let's talk about preparing your week for success by doing some meal prep. Now, when I'm talking about meal prep, I'm actually not talking about preparing already made meals that you package up and you eat the same thing every day. So that's not what I'm talking about, first off. What I am talking about is preparing and cooking different items that you can use in multiple various ways that are going to make your meal preparation easier. We're going to do beans today. I also am going to show you how to do very quick almond milk. We do that every single week. So almond milk for the week. We're going to get some sprouts going. These are going to be things that you can get done at the beginning of the week that's going to make it so everything goes easier. Your grocery budget stays beautiful and actually probably is going to go down from what it was before. Your nutrition is going to skyrocket. Your flavors are going to skyrocket. Everything's going to be better. So what we're going to first start with is grains. My go-to during cycles 1 and 2 where you're not having bread and you're not having pasta is having some brown rice. Brown rice is a go-to. I usually cook some quinoa for the week as well, but I'm going to show you just quick and easy how you can do some brown rice in your Instapot and make it go faster. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then I'm looking to do enough for the meals for me and my family for the week so that I am not having to get out and cook more for the week. So I'm kind of thinking ahead. Okay, if I want to have anything that's Mexican food, I'm always going to do rice with it. If I'm going to bowls one night, I'm going to want a grain with it. So think ahead to what you want to eat for your family, and then maybe just do a cup or two extra. So if you are sitting down and you're just like, I don't know what to make, you can go, oh, I've got that rice I can do stuff with. Additionally, if you don't use it all up in the week, you can make sure it is low moisture, so make sure that it's not soggy or anything, and it can go in the freezer already cooked and be brought out another time. So things that you can do with it. So you may know that I am not a huge proponent of measuring everything out and going by an exact recipe. I'm going to teach you how to actually cook, and most cooks don't actually do that. Recipes are a good jumping off point. That's what Joe and I call them. So I want to show you how to do brown rice without any measuring, because measuring to me just slows everything down in the kitchen. And so I am going to start by throwing in as much rice as I think we're going to need for the week. So this is, if you can see how little is actually in there, if you go and look on the side as to like how many cups or stuff is in there, we do not have a lot of rice in here, but it swells up a ton. And then what you want to do is you want to add water until it reaches one knuckle up above the rice. So you kind of put your finger in and you touch the top of the rice, and when the water gets to that first knuckle, you know you have enough water. So I have some water in here and I'm going to test it, and it is just shy. So we're going to add just a little bit more. Okay. That goes right up to my knuckle. If you have less, it's not going to have enough to hydrate those kernels of brown rice. If you have more, it's going to be soggy and end up wet in there. So this is the perfect amount. And then in your Instapot, you're not going to use the rice setting. A lot of them have a rice setting. This one has a rice setting. That works really well for a white rice. But for a brown rice, it needs to cook longer. So you're going to put this on high pressure for 25 minutes. So high pressure for 25 minutes. Always, anytime you're doing stuff like this, make sure your valves are closed so it can come to pressure. Know how to work your Instapot. But it is a lifesaver when it comes to doing meal prep and getting things going, because you can just set that and forget about it and do the rest of your day's worth of stuff. And then that will be completely ready to go. And then really we just store it in gallon Ziploc bag in the fridge, and it lays flat, and I can get it out for any meals I need, and the rice is already ready to go. So much faster than trying to cook it every single meal. One of the other things that we like to meal prep over here is to get some really nice fresh vegetable broth going. So I showed you this bag last time in the juicing video. This takes all of our scraps of vegetables for the week and we put them in a gallon Ziploc in the freezer. And then when it's the day I'm ready to do some meal prep and I've got some extra time, then I am gonna put all of that in a pan and it is going to simmer for hours and hours and hours and get beautiful and like so delicious so that you can have a beautiful vegetable broth, and you can use that for soups and stews and to cook. You could have even used this broth to cook the rice in. You can do so much stuff with this vegetable broth that it is just gonna up level every single thing you do for the week. And again, if you had to sit and take fresh vegetables that were whole and put them in the broth and simmer them for hours and hours, those vegetables are now not going to be useful in your stew. You're going to have to toss those out. So that's a little bit of a waste of dollars. And additionally, if it's going to take that long, you're probably going to get something off the store shelf that's going to be completely chemical laden and not going to be actual vegetables at all. So in a way to keep like budget friendly and nutrition heavy, start just anything left over of vegetables. Like you're finishing a meal and there's 5 pieces of broccoli left, nobody's eaten, throw them in the bag. If you're like peeling carrots, a lot of this is peeled carrots, stick all of the peels in the bag. You're doing onions, anytime you take off that outer skin of the onion, the outer skin of the onion is actually really, really good in broth. You never use that for cooking. In the broth, it's fantastic. So you're gonna put that in the bag. I have one little sliver of beet in here. Like anything there's a little bit of kale in here because I was like, nobody's gonna use that last quarter cup or half a cup of kale in anything. Let's just throw it in there. So this is only like 3 or 4 days worth, but I wanted to get it out and I'm gonna make a broth today to show you what it could look like. After we use vegetables all day, every day here. So after that, we usually have this whole thing all the way full. And then you're just gonna dump it in with some water and a little bit of Himalayan sea salt. And then after it has gone for several hours, I will season it a little bit for just bringing out the flavor a little bit more. I may add some garlic, I may add some of these other things, but it depends on what's in the bag. Maybe I have a couple of leftover pieces of garlic in the bag. And so that's why I start with just dumping it in the bag and letting it go first before we get too much seasoning in there. So we're gonna get all that goodness in there. So you can see it all dumped in there. I'm gonna cover it with probably like 3 inches of water over where the top of the vegetables are. So we've got our water going in here, and I'm gonna crack in some Himalayan sea salt. Now, usually we have some little mushroom stubs, like the little pieces off the mushrooms we're not going to use. If we're just going to use the caps, then we'll have the bottoms in there. I don't see any in there today, so I might look in my fridge and see if I have mushrooms that are needing to be used up or some ends that I'm not going to use, because that really does heighten the umami flavor of a vegetable stock, because we're not going to use this in any meat dishes. This is going to be for our vegan days. And so we want that umami flavor to brighten up a little bit, to just kind of have that good mouthfeel, and mushrooms are really good for that. So I might throw some of those in as well. So let's get this on the stove. I'm gonna see if I have a few mushrooms to throw in, and then we'll check on it in a couple hours. I did find some mushrooms that need to be used from our fridge. These were in the back of the fridge, and they got too close to one of the coils and they got some ice damage on them. So you can kind of see there's little bits of ice and stuff on them. So these are not going to be ideal for a lot of the things that I want a good mushroomy texture and flavor. The flavor is going to be there, but the texture isn't. And so this is another great way to use some of these. I'm going to take out the ones that are still not frozen. Those two feel good. That one probably isn't either. So these ones are very damaged from being icy and covered in ice a little bit. So I'm gonna keep these two because these two still seem good. These ones, it's a great way. You don't have to throw them away. We're gonna put them in a beautiful stock. So I'm gonna throw these in the stock too. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna show you how to prep is just some sprouts. Here I have a salad mix of sprouts, but I've actually bought a lot of sprouting stuff from like the bulk bins at Winco, and it's super, super, super cheap. These little mixes from Amazon are a little bit more expensive, but if you want like a mung bean or just an alfalfa or something like that, that's just like one straight seed, it's really, really inexpensive. And having fresh sprouts on hand for you to munch on and put in salads and just have throughout the week. They are loaded, loaded, loaded with nutrients. You can have sprouts on every day except for your juicing days. You can have them on your low carb meat days. You can have them on your vegan days. They are good throughout everything and they are amazing and super, super easy. So I'm gonna show you how I do it without an expensive sprouting kit. So I have been sprouting for about 15 years. This is how I've done it for the entire time, and it is massive, easy, and cheap. So you're just gonna take a canning jar, and I prefer the ones with the wide lid, and you're gonna want this part, the ring, but not the lid right now. And then you're gonna want some sort of meshy fabric. So I'm gonna give you some options. When I first started doing this 15 years ago, I actually used to use like old pantyhose and it worked fantastic. It was my favorite thing. And I'm like, I don't even know where to buy those anymore. Do they even sell those? It's not a thing anymore. So now I had, literally, I just really recommend you use something you have around the house. So this was a mesh vegetable bag that was kind of getting towards the end of its life a little bit. It was getting a little raggedy, the edges were kind of getting yucky, and I was like, oh, do you know what that would be good for? That is gonna be great for the top of our jar, and I'm gonna show you how. It just kind of goes on like that, and you put your lid on, and that's gonna allow the water to come in, the air to come in, and everything to work great. So you want to cut those nice and big enough to have excess going down, at least an inch going around. Otherwise, I do find they pull up and have issues. But literally, you can do that for free. You don't need an expensive sprouting kit. Find something that's got a nice fine mesh like this. You can kind of see how big the mesh is. I'm gonna say this is a finer mesh than like a cheesecloth, and a tea towel might be too tight. So something in between there that's kind of got a meshy thing to it. A nut milk bag does pretty dang well. So if you have a nut milk bag that's kind of getting to the end of its life and you can kind of cut it up a little bit, then that might do pretty well too. So literally the first 2 days, and we're doing this for prep days, so the only thing you need to do today is get it started. So we're just gonna throw some seeds in the bottom of this, and we're gonna allow for a lot of expansion because we want these little suckers to grow. So I'm only gonna fill about that much of the container. And this mix here is mostly those tiny little seeds, like your alfalfas and your broccolis, but they have a couple of bigger ones in there too. Those tiny ones, I like to get a little bit longer and to have sometimes a little bit of a leaf on there too. These ones are gonna take about 10 days to get ready. So you want to start these at the beginning of your cycle for the beginning of your next cycle, and they should be, but you're welcome to use them the whole time that they are ready, and I'll show you what ready actually looks like. So for today, we're just gonna get started. So let's fill this up with water. Cold water is the next thing. So I'm gonna I'm gonna get it nice and full with water. We're gonna put the top on. And then this is gonna stay like this until tonight. So tonight, what's gonna happen is we are going to drain out this water, which is why we have this mesh on top, is we're just gonna dump it over, drain it out, and fill it up with water again. So you're gonna do that first thing in the morning and at night. First thing in the morning and at night. We're gonna do that for 3 days in a row, and then we're gonna see how our little buds are coming along. So for 3 days, you're gonna rinse out the water out of there, completely dump it out, and fill it with fresh. And this is just gonna keep on the countertop. This is not to keep in the fridge. We want this to start growing, so keep it on the countertop. Next up, we're gonna make our almond milk for the week. So I took 1 cup of raw whole almonds, and I've had them soaking for several hours now. Now this started out as a cup of whole raw almonds, but they swell up a little bit as you soak them. And I did a hot water soak method so it goes a little bit faster. If you want it to go in like a couple of hours, like you forgot you were gonna make almond milk today, make sure you put like really scalding hot water, not boiling, we don't wanna cook them, but hot water in your cup to soak them in. And or you can put them with cool water, and I even put them in the fridge and put them in overnight, and then they will be soaked and ready to go. So you can see now that I drained them off, I have probably about a cup and a fourth now that they are all soaked up, and they end up to be beautiful and big and swollen like that. You can kind of, I'll show you like that so you can see it better. They are big and plump and juicy. Frequently when you soak them, your body is able to handle it better. You're gonna have less reactions to them, and it's more bioavailable, and it makes it easier to turn this into an almond milk. It just, all of the liquids get into the almonds. It is a lot easier for your blender to go in and express that. So soaked almonds. And then the next thing you're gonna need is a high-powered blender, as best as you can do. I am here using my Vitamix, and most of you know this Vitamix has been with me forever. I bought this sucker used 15 years ago, and it is a beast, and it just keeps going. A blend tech would be beautiful. If you can't do that, you know, try and do like a Ninja or something, but a higher power blender is going to get those into the smallest pieces possible and make for a really beautiful, creamy nut milk. And so let's get started. Super easy. We're just going to dump those soaked almonds in there. And this is gonna be a 1 part almond to 4 parts water recipe. So now all we have to do is put in 4 cups of cold water, and then we're just gonna blend it on high. I know a lot of people like to put in a little sweetener or vanilla in their almond milk. I actually use mine, I make mine plain and add those things later if needed, because getting it together plain means I can use it in a sweet or savory dish, and it's gonna be fine either way. If you did wanna make up a whole batch of sweet, my recommendation for doing a sweet would be to add some soaked medjool dates and a little bit of vanilla and just a little pinch of salt to just kind of bring it all together. Makes a really, really nice one. But for this, I'm a purist. I like it just plain, and then I zhuzh it up later for whatever, but this way I can add it in all of my savory dishes that need nut milk. So let's blend this up. So you're gonna blend that up until all the pieces look tiny, 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 as much as possible. I started out on regular, and then I work my way up to a high. And you can see here, like anything in there is gonna be just minuscule. So we want that blended up as much as possible. That took probably about 2 minutes. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna strain out the pulp. So I have 2 different things I wanted to show you with that. So this is the nut milk bag I bought off of Amazon, and I want you to notice the hole size, like how opaque is it? Can you see me through it? This nut milk bag actually, in my mind, takes forever to strain through. And when I am doing 50 million things, I really don't want to strain nut milk for 15 minutes. I really just don't, but it does strain it finer. This is a vegetable storage bag. You may have seen pieces of these bags used for my seeds. So I want you to notice the opacity. The holes are much bigger, but still in a way, you can see through it, but like still in a way that we're gonna catch everything we need to catch. And this goes so much faster. When I first started using this bag instead of the nut milk bag, this whole process got 1,000 times faster. So really all we need to do is strain that milk out into a container. So I'm just gonna put it back into here, and then for easy pouring, so that I can pour then it into my storage container. Again, this is gonna be from Amazon. This is a glass milk bottle that has a lid like that. I love this thing. It is so great for storing our nut milk in. So we're literally just gonna strain it out. So I put the bottom of it into my container like that. You can do it into a bowl too, but I'm not gonna dirty more dishes. And then open up the top so that we can start getting some of the nut milk going in there. I'm just gonna do a little bit of a time. So I'm just gonna kind of go like this. And since it's a clear cup, I can see exactly how much is going in there. Okay, and then we're gonna kind of close up the top of the nut milk bag, bring it up just a little and squeeze. Gently squeeze. Watch how fast this goes. I like to squeeze until nothing else is coming out. So, there we go. Pretty dry here. Now, there are a lot of recipes for what you can do for this leftover pulp that you're gonna have. So I'm gonna save it aside in a little bowl here. And every time I do just a little bit like that, I take the pulp out so that those openings in the bag make it easier for the next bit to come out. So you can see what the pulp looks like. That's what we've got left over, and it's pretty like dry and crumbly here. So we're gonna get this bit into our nut milk container. So now that's gonna go straight to the fridge. This, I'm gonna say, is gonna last probably 5 or 6 days. So I do this portion right leading into those vegan days, and it stretches the entire stretch of those pretty well for me. But you don't wanna probably go much past probably 6 or 7 days. It might start to get a little bit of funk to it. With fresh food, we wanna make sure that we're staying within like safety guidelines, but this is literally the creamiest and most delicious almond milk ever. It does not even compare to anything in the store because you can't buy anything this good. Just those two ingredients is like, I could just drink all of this straight. It is so stinking good, and it's amazing in all of your recipes. And like, I'll just throw it on some granola or on my oatmeal in the morning, or I make chia seed pudding with it, or like all of these other things that you're gonna get recipes and ideas for. This is the milk I'm using. So good. So the rice is now done. I have let the steam out, and I'm gonna open it up. Ooh, still super steamy. But I wanna show you this rice is perfectly done. I can tell by looking at it, it's absolutely perfectly done. And it made several cups worth. There's that rice in there. And so what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually going to cool this rice down. To do that, I'm actually gonna put it out on a sheet pan with some parchment paper on it and put it in the freezer for just a little bit to cool completely. And then I am going to just baggy that up. Again, you can put half of it in the freezer and half of it in the fridge if you're not sure if you're gonna use it up in time. And again, you want to lay them flat like that, especially if you're doing a freezer, and then they freeze in beautiful little like stackable bags instead of being all chunky and whatever. So I'm gonna let this steam out. And we're gonna get it on a sheet pan with some parchment paper. Now you could just let this chill in the fridge, but I want to use this pot again for cooking some beans for the week. So I want to get this emptied out so it's usable again. So we'll get that out. So I'm going to let that steam off for about 5 minutes here first before we drastically change the temperature and get it in the freezer. And then I'm only going to leave it in there for probably 5 or 10 minutes just to make sure all of the heat is off, and then we're going to back it up. Okay, so next in our meal prep, we are going to cook up some beans. For this week, like I said, we are going to do the white beans. They are super versatile. You can use them for just about anything. You can put them in vegan chili. You can use them in a rice and beans bowl. You can use them for Mexican food. Super, super, super versatile. I actually really like them on a salad. They're really, really nice. So these ones are rinsed and they have soaked for a little while, but you can actually, we're going to use the Instapot, and you can actually do this without even, you do want to rinse, but you don't even need to pre-soak them. I was pre-soaking them because I was doing some prep for soaking my almonds and stuff anyway, so I said, why not? I'm going to go ahead and soak them. But did you know you can put these in your Instapot and have them ready in as little as 30 minutes? So we're going to get these guys going. And these are actually a small white bean. They're not quite as big as kind of a white northern bean. They're a little bit smaller. So you usually want to put in about double the amount of water as you have beans. And it's okay if you have a little bit of extra water at the end. As long as your beans are done, you can drain them off and they're going to be just fine. To this pot, I'm actually also going to season these up so that they are super delicious. I always like to add onions and garlic. I did notice that I was out of fresh onions, but I had a little baggie of frozen onions in the freezer, and we're just gonna dump those guys in. You can do fresh, you can do frozen, it does not matter. Onions are one of those great things. This was actually like a pre-bought package, but you can, that's a meal prep that you can do. You can dice up a bunch of onions and throw them in the freezer, and then they're diced and ready to go at all times. And then we're gonna throw in some garlic. We're gonna take some fresh garlic and we're gonna just peel off and get probably 2 or 3 of the little cloves. Do 1, 2, and we'll do 3. I like to do the smash variety here. It's going to allow that outside to pop right off super easy. Crack some salt in there. Then we're gonna let these pressure and go for 30 minutes. Meanwhile, our rice here is done chilling. I'm gonna bag that up and go ahead and get half of it in the fridge and half of it in the freezer. This is where you're glad you had parchment paper, because it got a little long in there, so it's starting to freeze up a little bit with that parchment paper. It comes right up though. This is kind of in there in little clumps. And so that'll work really well for my freezer, because then when I want little meals just for myself here and there, I can just grab off a clump and heat it right back up. Now it looks like that vegetable broth is ready to drain those vegetables off. Oh, it does taste like it needs some more salt in there. So we're going to go in with some salt. It needed quite a bit more salt. So along with that little bit more salt, we're going to crack in some fresh black pepper. I'm going to put in some onion powder. Even though we had some onions in it, we actually didn't have very much in this batch. We're going to throw some white pepper in. And then this is one of our favorites. It's just, we call this like, it's our secret ingredient, but it's Creole seasoning. It's Tony's Creole seasoning. It's so good. You'll find me putting that in so many things. And I'm gonna throw in just a little bit of oregano. Now, vegetable broth is such a mainstay of so many of the dishes you're gonna make this week. This needs to be something where you put in the flavors that you really like. As I took the vegetables out, I noticed that it hasn't quite concentrated down as far as I want it to go. And since I've just put some new seasonings in, I'm actually gonna throw it back in the pot and leave the lid open to let the flavors develop even a little bit more, taste it again, and then I think we're gonna be ready to bottle it up and put it in the fridge. So, you know, I got to thinking, I've got these dried red chilies. We like almost everything spicy. I'm actually gonna throw in 2 of these as well into the broth. I've never tried it before, but we're gonna try a couple in. You can see from this second open top simmering, it's a little bit more boily right now actually, how much it has reduced and reduced and reduced down and concentrated the colors and the flavors in this. That is going to be just beautiful. Those new seasonings we just put in are completely in there and developed now. It's been sitting for about 10 or 15 minutes like this, and so I'm going to take it off the boil and let it cool down before we put it in containers. So let's test that broth again now that we've added seasonings and reduced it down, and make sure we're ready to go. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, those peppers add a really nice kick. I'm gonna enjoy that in soups and stuff this week. So, so good. Okay, so all we're gonna do next is package it up. Again, you're gonna see me use mason jars a lot. I really like using mason jars. I'm gonna put it in these couple of small ones because that is the ones I had empty because I use them a lot. I think all the big ones are full. Again, I like the wide mouth ones because it's easier to get things in and out of, but really whatever you have. And I just know that most of you probably have some mason jars lying around. It's gonna make it easy to defrost it, to cook it, to have it in there. You could throw this in the freezer like that. I've frozen these many, many, many times. You obviously do not want to go from boiling straight to the freezer. That will crack your glass, but you can do pretty much anything with this. It's not going to stain. It's not going to have issues. And that is so delicious. So we're going to put this in a couple of mason jars. I have just a little funnel here that's going to help. There's one. It looks like we'll have about 2 of these smaller mason jars filled. And again, this I concentrated down. So if you're not gonna boil it off and concentrate it down, yours is probably gonna have more liquid to it. Gonna let these couple of jars steam off for a minute, and then they'll go in the fridge. Those beans are just about done. So I wanted to show you what we got done in a really short period of time. It may have looked like a lot of extra things to do, but I decided to sit and time myself so I could see. Sometimes it's hard to grasp how long these things take when you're filming them and you're turning camera on and off. So I'm going to time the actual cooking and working portions. So to get this beautiful homemade broth, to get our beans done, to get 2 big baggies full of that brown rice done, to get our sprouts started, and to get this big beautiful thing of homemade almond milk, only took 20 minutes of actual work time. The rest of it was just those things cooking and simmering and getting ready. The rest, like the actual cooking prep time, the actual work time, was only 20 minutes. The rest of the time, you know, things are cooking in the pot or whatever. So you can carve out 20 extra minutes in your week to be able to prepare to have really amazing homemade foods with all the right ingredients. In our next video, I'm actually gonna do some prep work for the week again. That's gonna be on sauces and dips. When you have like sauces like salad dressing and hummus, and I have this beautiful green sauce you guys are gonna die over if you have not tried it yet. When you have those things already prepped at home, again, it makes mealtime so easy, and it just cuts down on that grocery budget. I'm also gonna show you my favorite cashew cheese dip that we use all the time, anytime we're having Mexican food. Even my adult kids who do not eat plant-based at all think this is the best queso they have ever had. Queso. So that is going to be in the next video. That is going to have all your sauces and dips that you can prepare for the week, so you're not buying them at the store. It's got all whole good ingredients, and again, you're going to see how fast it goes. Super fast. With this one, in 20 minutes and a little bit of cook time, you can have your almond milk, your broths, your seeds started, and your beans and your rice ready for the week.